Here's a psychology fact you're not ready for. Emotionally independent people don't scare others because they're cold. They scare them because they're uncontrollable. Psychologists call this emotional self-regulation. And once you see it, you'll understand why some people never beg, never chase, and never collapse when things don't go their way. Your relationships, your confidence, even your sense of self-worth are shaped by this one pattern, whether you realize it or not. This is why you keep over-explaining, over-giving, and over-attaching, even when you promise yourself you won't do it again. But here's where it gets worse. Most people think emotional independence means not caring. It doesn't. It means you care without needing control, validation, or reassurance to survive, and that's exactly why it triggers people. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People aren't disturbed by your independence because it hurts them. They're disturbed because it exposes them. You see, most social dynamics are built on emotional exchange, approval for effort, affection for availability, attention for compliance. When someone breaks that unspoken contract, when they don't need the reaction, the reassurance, or the response, the entire dynamic collapses. And this explains why emotionally independent people are rare and feared. But here's the part nobody talks about. Psychology shows that humans are wired to feel safe through attachment feedback. Text returned, energy matched, emotions mirrored. Your brain reads that as security. I belong, I matter, I'm safe. Now here's the dark part. When someone removes that need, when they don't chase feedback, your brain doesn't read it as strength. It reads it as unpredictability. And unpredictability triggers threat. That's why emotionally independent people are often labeled as distant, arrogant, or intimidating, even when they're kind, calm, and respectful. They don't follow the emotional rules most people live by, and that's unsettling. But here's the painful truth you probably haven't admitted yet. Most people don't want emotional equality. They want emotional leverage. They want to feel needed. They want to feel chosen. They want to feel like their absence would hurt you. Emotionally independent people remove that leverage. And without leverage, insecure dynamics fall apart. But here's the part nobody wants to admit. This is exactly why your life hasn't changed yet. Because deep down, emotional dependence feels safer than emotional freedom. Your brain is wired to avoid rejection more than it seeks fulfillment. It would rather stay anxious and accepted than calm and alone. So it clings, it adapts, it performs. Not because you're weak, but because your brain thinks connection equals survival. This happens because your mind evolved to prioritize belonging over truth. Thousands of years ago, being excluded meant death. So your brain learned to scan constantly. Am I liked? Am I wanted? Am I safe? The problem is that wiring never updated. So now, instead of predators and tribes, your brain fears unread messages, emotional distance and silence. Your mind does this to protect you from abandonment, but in reality, it creates self-betrayal. You over-explain when you should be quiet. You stay when you should walk away. You lower standards just to keep access. Your brain thinks attachment equals safety, but it actually creates dependency, and that's why knowing better doesn't change anything. Because this isn't a knowledge problem. It's an emotional pattern. If that hit you, good. It means you're starting to see it. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. Emotionally independent people aren't fearless. They just stop negotiating their self-worth. They don't need to be chosen to feel valuable. They don't need reassurance to feel grounded. They don't need emotional intensity to feel alive. And that's exactly why people don't know how to handle them. Because when you can't be guilted, rushed, or emotionally cornered, you can't be controlled. And most people unconsciously rely on emotional control to feel secure. This is where most people stay stuck forever. They mistake emotional independence for emotional coldness, so they avoid it. They stay nice. They stay available. They stay drained. But let's get specific. Emotionally independent people still feel deeply. They still connect. They still care. The difference is this. They don't outsource their emotional stability. They don't need someone else to regulate their nervous system. They don't collapse when someone pulls away. They don't panic in silence. They feel without spiraling. And here's the uncomfortable realization. When you stop reacting emotionally, you reveal who was only attached to your reactions. Some people will pull closer, others will disappear. And that's not loss, that's clarity. But here's the part nobody prepares you for. When you become emotionally independent, you'll feel lonely at first. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you've removed familiar patterns. Your nervous system will crave chaos it used to call connection. It will miss intensity. It will miss urgency. That doesn't mean go back. It means you're detoxing. And this is why emotionally independent people are rare. Because most people quit during the silence phase. They mistake peace for emptiness, calm for boredom, stability for lack of chemistry. So they reattach. They re-enter old loops. They give away power again. But emotionally independent people don't. They let the silence burn. They let the discomfort pass. They let their nervous system recalibrate. And eventually something shifts. They stop being afraid of being misunderstood. They stop needing to be liked. They stop negotiating their boundaries. And that's when something strange happens. People either respect them or resent them, because emotional independence forces others to face their own dependence. And most people aren't ready for that mirror. So here's the mental shift that actually breaks the cycle. If you want to become emotionally independent, stop trying to be emotionally understood. Start trying to be emotionally honest. Say less, react slower, explain nothing that wasn't asked for. When discomfort shows up, don't escape it, observe it. Tell yourself this one sentence: I can feel this without fixing it. That's the moment your brain starts to rewire, because you teach your nervous system that discomfort isn't danger, silence isn't abandonment, and being alone isn't loss. Do this consistently, and the pattern breaks. You stop chasing reassurance, you stop overinvesting, you stop leaking energy. And eventually people feel it, not because you're distant, but because you're grounded. That's why emotionally independent people are rare and feared, because they don't need permission to be whole. And once you become one, you'll never be controlled the same way again.